Broadcasting from Ireland, featuring interviews with some of the biggest names in magic. Welcome to the Deceive Reality Podcast with your hosts, David Peace and Steve Spade.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Deceive Reality Podcast. It's been a little while. We've been in What's the Crack, but we're back with an interview with Zach Mirz. Zach, how are you doing?
Hey man, I'm good. How are y'all?
Good. Now, Steve's also here. I should say that too.
Steve sometimes isn't here, but I'm here tonight. So yeah.
We'll see how it goes. But we always start these things with like the basic question of how you got into magic or how it became your addiction, like the rest of us have it. What was that sort of like starting point for you?
Well, it didn't start with a magic kit, so let's start there.
Lucky.
So my dad's from Iran, my mom's from Afghanistan. So they landed in Texas of all places. So I grew up on the mom's side of my family. So she had like this Iranian television network as well, because they all spoke Farsi in Iran and Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. Anyways, one night they for some reason in that network, David Blaine's special from the 90s was there. And my family from Afghanistan, they couldn't, it was illegal to do magic in Afghanistan or watch magic. So it was kind of the first time everybody was seeing magic in a very raw form in the 90s, where Blaine was doing it on state streets. It was mostly reaction shots. And I was just looking in my living room and how odd my uncles and mom and grandma were. And I just distinctly remember saying in my own head, I was like, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. So, you're a kid, so you look up to your hero. So you want to talk like him and act like him and do the same tricks that he was doing on television. And then you grow older and you kind of figure out your own voice, your own personality, your character, and your own magic. And here we are today, man.
Yeah. Cool. That's wild. It's wild that like Blaine started. Like Blaine was one of the big things for me as well. Like I might have been messing around with magic, but just seeing him that first Street Magic special is cool. And like to have that, you've like Blaine now and have worked with him a bit. What's that like? Kind of like go full circle.
It was like a very limited, like it was a really interesting. I out of respect, I don't know how much I could share or not share, but like it was just it was just like one of those things where, I happened to have been at the right place. All magic is, generally speaking, is like just being at the right place at the right time, right? It's just like you never know what people are looking for and what people are interested in a certain special or tour. And then you happen to be the guy that does that thing that they've been looking for. So it wasn't, I don't see myself as like a magician's magician. I don't see myself as like, the greatest thinker and methods in the world or anything like that. I just happen to have made this really cool thing that was one thing, literally. And it was the thing that he was looking for. And and I didn't even know I was going to be in the credits or any. I was just like, hey, here's a handful of phone calls with him. That was cool. Yeah. And then I texted him. I was like, dude, that's like literally one of the nicest things. I didn't expect it at all. I'm happy to help. And he just is the kindest guy as well. And yeah, I've gotten to know the Blaine that is a dad now, which I could relate to. I'm a father of one daughter with one on the way, literally in 10 days. And
cool.
it was cool to see David Blaine, the dad. Seems like, he's changed a lot from the 90s as well. And he's laughing a lot and joking a lot. And, it's great. Yeah. So I think a lot of magic is, you happen to be at the right place at the right time. And then I think the other thing is what you want to be known for is never the thing you will be known for. And it's just like this other thing that producers are looking for, or people are looking for, or just it happens to be a thing you never imagined it could be. And that is the thing that is commercially viable and the thing that is hot that people are interested in. For a great example is like Rubik's Cube. Who would have thought Rubik's Cubes would have been the sensation that it is for the last decade, right? It just, you saw it. I think it was I forget who the guy's name was. He was doing it on America's Got Talent and made
Yeah, I
it
remember that.
popular. And then from there, it just became this whole brand of magic. And it's just like, who would have ever thought Rubik's Cubes would have been as popular as it is today? So, yeah.
Yeah,
It's,
absolutely.
it's that whole knowing your audience thing, I guess. There was something you could be working on, an effect that you think is going to be like really good, and then you might take it out, and then it's actually the one then that gravitates to the general audience. Like it might not be the one you originally started working on, or vice versa.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what it is. I think I work a lot like the way comedians work today, or at least in America that I'm familiar with. I don't know how it is in the rest of the world, but a lot of comedians here, they go to open mic nights.
Yeah.
Probably, if you live in New York, you could go probably to 10 a night and do 1 or 2 or 3 minutes, and you're kind of working out material. And that's the way I do it. It's never polished. It's like when it's about 60% ready, I'm comfortable enough to throw it on stage.
Yeah.
And then from there, because I don't want to spend all the money and do all the research in the hope that it's going to be good. I want to get it 60% ready, throw it on stage, but I wanted to put it in a position in the show where if it does flop, it's in a good place because it's between two really powerful routines.
Absolutely.
So, and the routine might not be good, but there might be a joke in there that I really like that I would have never came up with. So there might be jokes or scripts or ideas that come out of a routine. It might not be the trick itself, but there might be like routines and patterns and ideas that come out of it. And then you could take out the trick and then maybe put something else in that might be a little bit more powerful. And that's how I do it all the time.
Yeah.
I have this really great thing. I spend a lot of money on it until it's about 60% ready. And then from there, I'll throw it on stage, see how the audience reacts, and then I go from there. And then every one of my shows, I think this is probably the best piece of advice I could give to anybody, like a great athlete. A great athlete does 3 things that a lot of magicians don't do. The first thing is they practice. Second thing is they perform. And the third thing that rarely most magicians do is watch film. I think that's a really important aspect of our art form and what we do that is often overlooked. A lot of magicians will be like, I don't like watching myself on camera, but it's like, well, you're making everybody else watch you, and you can't like sit through your own performance and watch it. That's kind of a problem, right? So I will definitely listen to most of my performances, and then if I'm on an airplane between translit, I'll actually watch it as well because there's so much you could learn from just watching yourself that could cut a lot of fat from the performance. So I would say that is the big thing, is watching yourself over and over again and seeing if that routine you're working on has any legs to it. And then
you could be in rehearsals for ages, but until you get it in front of a live audience, it's going to adapt and change from the first night you do it to halfway into your tour to the end of your tour.
Yeah, and also, you're more self-aware of who you are when you watch film because you're only performing from your perspective, which is the perspective not anybody else is looking at. They're looking at it from the seats in the venue, So I think that's important as well, is like nobody sees it from your perspective. And when you're rehearsing from just your perspective all the time, you're not, you're not seeing it from a different vantage point. I remember there was a story once as well, like Copperfield made his stagehands or whoever it was, his team, perform his tricks, and Copperfield would be in the audience watching as if it was him performing it. And I think there's a lot of valuable lessons to be learned from that.
Yeah, it's really good because it's that situation as well. The difference between we all perform on stage, and when you're doing close-up stuff, you can go and try it on your friends and family. You can be on a night out with friends and just see what happens. But stage pieces, you can't just like try out as easily on people because you need the setting and that sort of stuff. And one thing I also find watching yourself back, I know for myself, I don't like listening to my voice, but you have to sometimes. But also just watching yourself silently, turn off the audio so you don't get distracted by that, and be like, how am I standing? Where am I moving? That was unnecessary. Why did I do that way? And sometimes by just turning off the audio, you can learn a lot by what you need to improve on stage with just your movement and that sort of stuff.
Mhm. That's a great point, as well, just watching yourself in nonverbal communication. I highly recommend a book that I read. I should have read this years and years ago, but I read it more recently. I think it's Juan Tamariz's 5 Points of Magic, and he talks about the way you need to stand on stage and the way even your eyes communicate with the audience as well, and what portions of the audience to be looking at. It's a fantastic book. It's really, really good. And I took those techniques. I wish I would have read it 15 years ago, but I've taken a lot of those techniques and put it into because I didn't even know there was a way to stand as well. I wasn't like a theater kid. I wasn't, I just watched a lot of stand up as
Yeah.
well. Um, and then, there's kind of two rules of thought, even with stand up, like I know, what's his name? Uh, Maximum Entertainment,
Yeah.
the book, will say use a handheld microphone and things like that, and just watch yourself, and you could communicate and accentuate things a lot more than if you have an over the ear microphone. Just like little things like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's a valuable lesson, man. Is just watching yourself without the words as well. And I don't think many people like the sound of their voice, David.
Yeah.
I've had voice coaches before as well to help with my intonations and cadence as well, because some of my favorite comedians, I think a lot of them, we like the sound of their voice. People like Dave Chappelle. There's a very alluring tone to the way he's talking that holds a lot more weight than someone like me saying the same exact words. And I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned by that too.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely. I think that's very, very good as well. Like, it's that acting side that sometimes get overlooked by magicians. That like it is a theater performance at the
Yeah.
end of the day when you are on stage, and we need to look into that. Even down to something me and Steve were talking about recently. Especially you see a lot at like Blackpool and stuff like that when you're watching other magicians perform. It's kind of how like the magician on stage outfit has changed, because a lot of people wear suits and that sort of styling, but there's a lot more like streetwear, similar to how comedians dress on stage, that magicians are finding. Have you experimented with that, of like going the more magician look of a suit, or not like top hat and tails, but like that sort of style, then into more of a casual look?
Yeah, I mean, I think the suits. I mean, I would say like kind of the stereotypical magician suit today isn't the top hat and suit, but more like you have to have a leather jacket for some reason, right? Like it just seems like everybody has a leather jacket. From my last tour, like in that closet behind me are all like my jackets from past performances. I just keep them there as well. So when I did Ticket for One at Blackpool, I had that. So I just took that leather jacket with me because that was the one I performed for. But I think it should match your character. I think people should just hire a costume person and understand the character. Like I'm not like the knife guy anymore, where I've got knives, and I love doing those routines, but I'm a dad now, and I'm a dad, girl dad. So you kind of think about what that would be like on stage, and your attire should fit that
Mhm.
character and whatever that is. And I'm not a costume person, so I wouldn't know, but I can hire a costume person to really reflect what the show is about, because now it's very much about my daughters, the
Mhm.
show.
Yeah.
So wearing a cool leather jacket, although I love it, it doesn't feel like it fits what the show is about anymore. So
Mm.
yeah.
So I find it interesting with that sort of stuff, because a lot of magic acts I find are tailored to what you wear. Me and Steve were talking recently about I use a top pocket a lot because I do mentalism on stage, so it's a lot of envelopes going in pockets and things like that.
Mhm.
So it's like I'm so used to having a top pocket right here, and I was like, I'm not going to wear a blazer tonight. I'm going to go a leather jacket or just a bomber jacket or something. And then I was like, I've no top pocket to put my envelopes into.
Yeah.
I need to either like get tailored clothes now or rework my act to suit it. Have you found things like that as well, where you might change it? The costume designer will tell you to do something. You're like, but now I need a second inside jacket.
Yeah. Two of my jackets I custom made in there. Two of the three last tours. One of them I made a custom top it inside because I needed it for his steel. So I made a custom top it, and then the other one, the interior. This was on Penn and Teller Full Us. The interior I got completely ripped out of the jacket, and then we made it all white so it looked better on camera.
Yeah.
And then my tailor embedded magnets inside of the jacket as well. So when I showed the inside of my jacket, there was a bunch of knives that were held on by those magnets. So the idea was pick a knife, any knife, and I opened up my jacket, like kind of like a watch person,
Yeah.
So it was essentially that idea, but with knives. So I would just be walking around my house, just getting comfortable with the knives inside my jacket because it was quite dangerous. And, sometimes the magnet wasn't strong enough, so it would fall through my jacket, So yeah, that was completely the inside was. So if you like a jacket, I would say also kind of a weird thing, but lamb leather is probably the best for stage because it's the lightest type of jacket too. Some of those heavier jackets, you're sweating quite a
So
bit
much.
Yeah.
with the stage lights and things like that. But lamb leather, like a light jacket, is incredible on stage because it's not as heavy. You can move around a little bit more, and it looks really nice. It's more expensive, but it's worth the investment if that's going to be your thing and the thing that you're going to be wearing on every single night as well. So.
Even a velvet blazer, sometimes you can be sweating. Like you only start realizing it when you hit the
Yeah.
stage because
Yeah.
you're high energy and stuff anyway as well. And when you've no hair to catch the sweat, it becomes a real problem during the show. It's like, come on, eyebrows, kick in.
Yeah.
It can be it can be a lot. It's all those little things that I think is so fascinating to talk to with other performers. Of like,
Mhm.
it's not always the tricks. It's like it's your clothes, it's the music, it's the lighting, it's that sort of stuff. And
Mhm.
it's interesting hearing you talking about like working with a costume designer and like with Noah at Blackwood, you Brent Braun helping you with your show,
Mhm.
and you like the directing and that sort of stuff. How much of like a team do you put together to have around your show?
Um, Quite a bit. I mean, because I understand what I'm good at, and then I delegate what I'm not good at to people that are good at it. I'm not the greatest magician or method guy, so I rely on Brent to help me with that. He has his thinking and the way he understands the history of magic, and the methods are a lot deeper than what I um, know. So having him and saying, "Hey, I've got this idea," and he's like, "Well, there's 50 people that have done it, this particular way, and it was invented in the 1950s," and he knows all that, and he loves all that. And for me, I think my strength is storytelling. So I could take really a lot of tricks and make the connections properly. And saying, "Oh, that would be interesting to do it with this. This is a good storyline." So I'm really good at that. And then my music guy, I've got a guy that does music in the show. I've got a guy that also helps me with storylines. And yeah, I just create a team as well. For television stuff, I try not I try having people that aren't magicians
Yeah.
in the team so they could help us understand from a non-magician perspective
Yeah.
what is going to work and what isn't, because as magicians we're kind of in this tunnel as well in the magic world. It's kind of hard to see outside of that, so having other people like directors and director of photography and all these aspects that come in that make a beautiful piece of a special or even a magic show. A perfect example is, you know if you could think of like a show that is, like in and of itself. For example, Frank Oz was the director of that show.
Yeah.
Not magician, probably didn't know much about magic going into it, but he probably gave Delgadio a very interesting perspective that he thought a lot about, that really massaged and tilt and formed the way that that piece is seen today.
Yeah, having a director or someone else in the arts look at your show is worth its weight in gold. Really is.
Hmm. Yeah.
You can see that that's the reason, like, in and of itself stood out and became such a big thing among magicians, because it was a magic show that didn't feel like a magic show in that sort of way, that it's got that sort of vibe. And I think it's like, it was one of the things I liked about your show as well when we saw it at Blackpool. It was that sort of, there's like, it's not just, so here's a trick, and now I'm going to show you another trick.
Mm.
Why? Because I like this trick, and it
Mm.
was €200 on Penguin, so I'm going to do it. So here we go. We're going, and it's like, it's that sort of thing of that. This, as you're saying, the storytelling and like tricks having a reason for being there, and the whole flow of it, I think is really interesting. And I think that's the art of magic, not just going, well, here's a trick.
Yeah, and I think that's why I was comfortable going to Blackpool too, because magicians could steal my whole act quickly. Like the tricks, they're not anything revolutionary or groundbreaking. They were
Steve
just
did straight away.
yeah,
I did not steal your act.
yeah. There was nothing mind blowing about it, but what you can't steal is the
Your
show.
story.
It
Yeah.
is it is so unique to me. There's no way. So why would you do the magic the way it was performed if the story isn't there? It just becomes another magic trick. And I think that's a lesson to be learned for everybody is you can be ripped off and stolen. Like any magician that sees a trick on Penguin Magic for $25, there could be 100 magicians that have that trick in their show.
Yeah.
But what you can't be stolen from is what you have to say. And that's where we start is what do we want to say? And then we start from there and we start building up.
Yeah.
I'm like any magician. I'll get excited about a new trick as well. And I'll try to figure out sometimes I'll kind of work backwards and try to figure out a really amazing trick that I really, really like and try to figure out the story behind it. But the magic is always better if we could start with what we have to say first and something that's already in us. And then you start building that out of here's 100 different or 50 different magic tricks that will go along with what you're trying to say. And a perfect example is like the multiplying bottles at the very end of Ticket for One. Like that's ridiculous that, I'm doing that in front of, 4,000, 5,000 magicians at Blackpool as well. But if they really hear the story and the essence of why we decided to do that, they're like, well, his dad was a bartender and this fits the story. And I'm not saying this was my dad. I'm saying, this is the script was, now this probably isn't the thing that my dad would do on a busy Saturday night. But what I can promise you that this has the very essence and soul of the stories I've heard about him. And then I go on to do that trick. Right. So I think you go a lot further if you could figure out a story, but more importantly, you figure out what the concept is. So for us, we started Ticket for One because we thought it would be interesting. I just thought it would be interesting to break the fourth wall and talk to the audience at home in real time in front of the live audience. I thought it was weird. I wanted to push the way a special was filmed. And that's another thing most people don't think about. Like from Richard Pryor, the comedy special, his first comedy special, the way comedy specials or specials in general have been filmed hasn't changed that much.
Yeah.
But we wanted to break what that would look like first and make it interesting because it's going through the lens of a camera. And then from there, it's like, well, why are we breaking the fourth wall? And then we started asking, and then we kept hitting these blocks and then kept solving it for about 2 to 3 years. It's like, oh, well, what if at the end it's like, I'm not talking to you, but I'm talking to your mom, my mom. And it's like, okay, well, that's cool. But why wasn't my mom just at the show to begin with? You're doing this whole thing. And then it was one day I was on a run. I was like, wait, what if it's my dad? And it's like, well, what if it's a whole love story for my dad? And what if it's everything I've always wanted to say to my dad? So if someone watches it a second time, they are like all those fourth wall shots is what a son would say to his father. And we knew we had it. So we had the concept. And now the magic tricks are easy because from there, like we got the concept. It's a high concept.
It's
And
giving a magic show that sort of like sixth sense of, oh, there was a twist. I need to go back and rewatch it.
Yeah.
yeah,
And things like rewatchability to, because a lot of time magic is just the surprise of the magic, and then the second time you know what's going to happen. But adding that rewatchability into magic is really cool with a twist.
Mm.
yeah, yeah. And then making the magic and the scripting was easy from there. It's like, well, what would you tell it to your dad if your dad was still alive and next to you? And then we just started. And then the opening line was very important. I said I just became a father, and that's a call back to everything. And then the last line I say in the special is "Dad?" question mark, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was easy to make after we figure out that high concept. And I think with anything, it's like, well, you know, why are you a magician? Like every comedian has something to say. So what do you have to say? I think that's more interesting and important than what you're doing. So
Definitely.
please tell me why I should sit and buy a ticket for you and have me interested in you and have me fall in love with you first. And then the magic is great. I don't even care if it's good because I'm already invested in you and what you have to say. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's definitely the artist way of thinking, for sure. Because if they already love you and the character and everything that you're bringing to and the genuine you as well. That we were saying there about David Blaine is more himself now.
Mhm.
I think people are gravitating to him that never would have gravitated into him before. And I think when you're more you and you're telling a real story and people can see the human aspect behind the magician or whoever or a performer, I think they just engage more. Like when my show that I'm touring at the moment, I have a piece that I dedicated to Dad in the show because he's passed away as well, and he was a mechanic. So I do a piece with a washer and it vanishes in an impossible location kind of thing. But people want to like tell you their story and after the show they want to tell you their experience about loss and stuff. It hits people on such a higher level than just another card trick or a coin trick, and it can just be that too. It can just be a simple trick, but if it has meaning and reason, it hits normal people at such a higher level.
Yeah, nobody's gonna remember a magician doing magic. Um, they're gonna remember of how you made them feel and
Yeah.
what you say at the very end. And those are the most powerful things. If you look at art in general, those are typically the most powerful things you remember a week from the time you saw it, a month, from the time you
Hmm.
saw it, and a year from the time you saw it, right? I never thought Take It for One was changing anybody's life. I just thought that was a good start from an introduction of, hey, this is who Zach Mirz is. And from that special, we develop our career. So from there, the next special is a moving forward of a developing of my life that people want to hear about, right? It's the loss of a father. The next one is becoming a father, and then the next one, who knows? But it's a developing, it's an
Yeah.
unraveling of a life, and I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that thing you were saying of having people interested in you rather than just the magic, and that's the whole thing of even just marketing. And people won't want to just see a magic show; they'll want to see your magic show because they want to see you. And if someone comes up to me after the show and they're asking questions about me as a person, I'm so much happier. I feel like I've done my job better than if they're asking me questions about the tricks I did, because I'm
Yeah.
like I want them to be more interested in me than my magic. Because
Yeah,
as you say, anyone can do magic, but only you can be yourself.
yeah. I think that's important what you just said. I think more people, if you're a magician, I think more people will like you and remember you if you ask them about who they are, where they come from, remembering their name, their family, you know, that's more magical than, hey, do you want to see a card trick? Right.
Hmm.
Even at Blackpool, I would like hop into the lectures and hop out, and like I would hear like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna put your thumb under here, and then you're gonna do that." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm just not. I'm just. This isn't just it just might be my ADD as well. I'm like, I'm just not interested right now in any of this." And a lot of my friends are like, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I love this," and my buddies are like, "Are you gonna buy it?" I was like, "I just don't know what I would do with it because I
Yeah.
don't." Story. Like I think it's amazing. It's really amazing. But I just don't, it's not in me right now. I don't have no clue how I would use this. So, to save even a lot of money for magicians, it's like the question first is like, what is the story and what do you have to say with this? and then spend the $2, $3, $4, $5,000 that they're asking for. I already know what I'm going to do with something before I buy it. I never just buy it just because I just think it's a cool thing. I don't do that anymore. So
that comes with time, though. That comes with just experience about being a magician. Because like even like party magicians and people that form that aren't theater magicians, they can't really understand that because a majority, we were all the same, I suppose, early on. You do buy a lot of tricks to kind of, whatever kind of fills your character, or does it suit you or whatever. But there's times then when you see something, you're like, I know exactly what I would do with that. It's almost instantaneous. That can only kind of come with experience. And I'd imagine when you're designing the show, you have certain ideas for certain tricks at certain places that are that you've performed them tons of times and that they're going to fit your narrative.
Yeah, especially Ticket for One, that drove me crazy, because when you start creating stuff, you have, I don't know if it's for everybody, I have a lot of anxiety because I'm like, wait, there has to be other things that are better than this. Like, once we put it out into the world, it is really important that I go absolutely crazy over this idea and exhaust and it drives everybody crazy around me, because I'm like, what about this? Or have we considered this? And literally all the time, for months and months and months, because I have anxiety, because once it's out, there's no going back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So and then once it's out in the world, you kind of get depressed because you're done with this project that you were so close with for such a long time. And then, you kind of figure out what the next thing is. I mean, it's a weird industry that we live in. There is no finish line.
Yeah.
It's just, you just create art, and you might be popular for 6 months and then everybody forgets about you, and it's the next cool thing. And like, what do you do after that? It's a weird industry that we live in, that there is no structure at all. It's just art, and you just keep creating. So it's very odd. Yeah. If you think about it that way.
Yeah, definitely.
And what's mad as well with magic, when you comparing a lot of comedians, and you see them, like, they have to have a new special every year, or a new hour every year for touring and all that sort of stuff. But then with magicians, like, there's loads of tricks out there, but there are only so many. And a lot of times you can do 2 different shows that have completely different stories, but they could have like a lot of similar tricks, but you've changed the presentation around it, that if it can feel completely different, which is like, it's an advantage that we can have, that it's like, you could do Sneak Thief, I think, in every show you do, and the audience won't think it's the same trick, because you're just like, write down a word,
Right.
draw a picture, or what. Like, that's 2 different tricks. That's 2 different presentations, that's 2 different stories that you're telling with people, which can be quite helpful.
Yeah. That's actually interesting too, because I had a conversation with Brent recently about this. Like, if magic specials become more and more popular, there's only so many tricks we could perform. Something at impossible location, an appearance, a production, a manipulation. There's only so many. It's like 11 types of magic tricks, or whatever it is. And then if specials become popular, it's going to be a good and a bad thing. The bad thing is going to be a lot of material is going to feel the same over time for people.
Yeah.
But the good thing is this should push magic to places that it's never considered before, because everything feels so similar. So how do we break out of this mold and make it unique again, like a comedy special?
Yeah, I think going backwards as well is going to be a big thing, because like, there's a lot of tech magic out there at the moment. But for me, technology is magic. I don't know how my TV works. That's magic. So it's like, you do something weird to my TV, cool, okay. And it's that sort of thing of going back to like just a pen and paper, or like just complete analog stuff, maybe even chalkboards, just going as clean as possible. That, like, that could take people out and make people feel different and stuff like that, which would be interesting to see if going backwards might be the way forwards as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it just starts with high concept ideas that just break the mold of what even a special is. Like, if we're creating art, let's challenge the way we film everything. So that comes from, your whole team. You're a director of photography. What kind of cameras are we using? What kind of lenses are we using? How are we shooting this? Does it need to be in a theater, or could it be, it's just, you start asking all these questions to yourself, and you realize you have a lot more creative freedom than you think you did. And then from there, I think magic specials is a beautiful thing. And I think there should be more of it. And then at a certain point, once everything kind of feels the same, that's where it breaks into, wow, this is art. Like, this is, people realize there's layers to magic that they're looking at as well. And the magician is the artist.
Especially with street magic stuff, like what street magic specials has been shot differently than Blaine's first street magic special, of like, he made the revolution of throwing the camera on the audience. And now every special is throwing the camera on the audience, and the magician vanishes after the trick is done, and what leaves them at it, and then the special ends with a big stunt or a big thing that the thing's been building up to. But like, breaking that mold would be really interesting to see where people can go with it, because it's been like nearly 30 years of that style now, and it's working. People like it because people like reacting to reactions. But I'll be curious to see if there's other ways that might work even stronger.
Yeah, I mean, he's revolutionized magic more times than one, taking him to his grade, all his endurance stunts. It's
His new show.
He's never satisfied, which is great. This is what we should be thinking about, and then also, it's how far will you take it? Are you willing to start putting syringes in your body,
I'm good.
look like, right? So and then it's the question of how much are you willing to take that to the limit to create art for people as well. And I think that's another consideration to have as well.
Yeah, more magicians thought, like, as art, because Copperfield is an advocate of like making magic seen to the world as art. It's not really pop culture or pop art. It's not like, but over the years, I think people, like that are being more themselves on stage and being more human about it. Even though you're, to the audience, you're this guy that's doing these impossible things, but if you can show the human side about being a dad, or about whatever it might be, or losing your dad, you can tell your own story throughout that. And I think that is, like you said, that is the artist. That is, and then it's also like you're still the magician, you're still the performer, or the actor, playing the part or whatever, but you're also being very much you, and the audience will always gravitate towards that.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. It's just one of those things as well. It's just figuring out what you have to say. That's authentic as well. Don't BS your audience. Don't be like, hey, this, like, you've got some, I've met people who it's like, well, I don't have anything to say. And I just don't think you were digging deep enough. I think everybody has something to say. Everybody has a unique perspective, and our footprints and our DNAs are also different, our upbringings, and just pulling from that. And we just might not be remembering our past, and my daughter does stuff that triggers memories that the way I was doing it, when I was a kid as well. But it's just like these little things that you just remember, and you could pull whole shows out of it. And I think that's important as well. And it's just like a kernel of an idea. That's all it is. It doesn't need to be, my dad was murdered. It doesn't need to be that grueling or intense. It could just be a kernel of an idea that basically propels a whole show.
I think that thing is even like, what could be an interesting show is the message of the show is like, I have nothing to say. Why do I feel like I have nothing to say? Why do I feel in myself that I have nothing to share with the world? What has happened in my life to make me feel this way? Explore that sort of feeling of, like, because everyone, as you're saying, has a different footprint, but something might make you feel that you don't. And exploring that could be a really interesting concept for a show. So even like the roadblock itself could be your show.
Yeah.
What is that thing that's holding me back?
Yeah, that's a really great concept for a show. Like a starting point is like, I got nothing to, and it's like between every routine. The performer is literally thinking in front of you and just trying to make it very awkward and uncomfortable, and the audience is kind of pulling for you to get through it. And I think there's a lot of things to be said about that, about the insecurities that everybody has. It's like everybody's been to that party, and it's like, I don't know these people. It's like, I guess we're talking. What are we talking about? As well. So yeah.
There's one thing I want to touch on as well. That's on the. I was just looking at the Blackpool bio, which was handy. But you developed designed a deck of cards to fight human trafficking and stuff like that. Can you talk a bit about what was involved in that and a bit of the story behind it?
I think I totally forgot where. It was my younger, I think I was probably 20s, probably like 10 years ago. But I just read a book about human trafficking and wanted to. I was in front of audiences. I am in front of audiences all the time, and I just wanted to bring awareness to what was going on. But I knew, me just doing this, I don't have the organizational skills or the systems to do that. So I thought it would just be better to partner with an organization that does that, and I would create a deck of cards for them. All the money and the proceeds from it would go to them, but also the deck of cards would be in the hands of, thousands and thousands of people, where they could get some information on that, but also, it's a deck of cards. It's always on your shelf for a very long time. So I partnered with an organization in Nashville, Tennessee called Hope for Justice, and they're doing some really good work on basically eradicating human trafficking as well. There's a lot of really amazing organizations, but that was the one that I wanted to partner with as well. And the guy got the vision, got the what I was doing, came to my show. He understood it all, so we created a deck of cards, and then we're trying to maximize every platform as well. So we could have made the deck of cards, but I wanted it to be on Kickstarter because that has such a big audience as well. So we did it on Kickstarter, raised the funds, created a deck of cards, did the distribution, and went to 30 different countries or whatever it was as well. And it was just a really cool project, man. It's been sold out for a long time. And I didn't have the bandwidth to keep. I just got so busy that I couldn't keep printing cards and shipping them, and I'm not a logistics guy. I understood that about myself, so I have people that I delegate to do that on my team. So if it doesn't align with creating and making magic, I try to delegate everything else to everybody else because I know I'm going to screw it up. So yeah.
Delegation is key. That like your big lesson for everyone is know what you're not good at and find people who are good at it. Because I think
even if you're not a detail person, like, don't advance your shows. Go find someone that could advance it for you. Like, if you need microphone stand, or if you don't like talking on the phone, and you feel like there's going to be a better person that will have a better experience for your overall, from booking to the end of the show, like, hire someone, pay them a couple $100 a show, and they could do it for you, and you don't have to worry about all that. So that's what I do. I just because I would just be crazy by holding people's hands all the time of like, hey, we need a microphone, we need an XLR cord, and we need it's just like, I'd rather just delegate that to someone that is a detail person, so I don't have to do it.
Yeah, that's very good. And we're coming up to near the end of the hour, so I'm going to bring up the good, the bad, and the ugly, which is a segment we have in the show about a performance that maybe started off went downhill. Even the best of us magicians, we've messed up a trick maybe once, and maybe try and recover it, but sometimes you can't even do that. Do you have a performance in mind of maybe where you're doing something, hopefully not with a jacket full of knives? I saw you take that off really quickly on Penn and Teller before they hugged you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there something that comes to your mind?
I mean, there's been a lot of bad shows I've done. Just like anything imaginable. One thing that came into my mind, it was, I did a show and it was pretty full. and I was about to do a big revelation. I used to have this sculpture on stage, and it was an abstract sculpture. I'm sure people have seen this before, but it's basically made of like a bunch of welded pieces of aluminum. So it was like this. It's one of those routines where it's a big build up. So it takes a lot of time to get there, but then once you get there, it's like punchline, 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 right? So it's like kicker, 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 kicker. So it always takes a long time to get there. And as soon as I get to the first revelation, which still takes a while, a cop comes into the venue and stops everything and is like, "Hey, we're looking for a girl we cannot find." And the parents are like, so I literally had to stop the show. And it was like absolutely ridiculous. And the host didn't know this was happening. And the host was like very upset about it. But it was like one of the most ridiculous. It was a little bit unnecessary because the girl was like, she wasn't like stolen or anything like that. But it was just like this police officer that had this power trip that decided to just come into the venue and stop everything because he's looking for this girl. So that was pretty bad because it just killed the momentum and people forgot. Like at that point, like people forgot what the build up and the punch. It's all about timing and punch. So that was pretty bad. And then the other one was actually at Ticket for One. We filmed it 3 times. So the first time was without an audience. It was an empty room. So it was really tight camera shot. But the first show, it was horrible. Like we were spending so much money and people's phones were going off. People were talking. Like it was just not great as well. So between the second and third show, I kind of made my feelings known to everybody. How dissatisfied I was. And then the third show was pretty much 95% of what you saw of the film as well, which was great. Yeah.
That's it. I'd so now just like have someone come in dressed as a police officer, and that would be my time to load my ultimate prediction box.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, there you go. Misdirection.
The misdirection was quite a bit in that moment. And again, everybody was like, "What is this guy like?" It was a little bit over the top. Like I get someone like is trying to find their kids, but we all knew like she was somewhere. She just it wasn't like she was stolen. It wasn't like last resort. Like he hasn't exhausted all of his options yet, and he's just like cops. It's like, oh my gosh. So yeah,
absolutely. That's great. Did you have anything there for people who want to maybe like keep up to date with when you're doing shows or check out any of your stuff online? Where's the best place for them to keep track of all that?
Yeah, so I tour a lot of secondary markets, which are smaller markets in the U.S. So if you want to come out to a show and you're listening to this podcast, just send us an email. We'd be happy to comp your tickets if you're in your neck of the woods. But it's Mirz, MIRZ tour.com. And if you just want to sit and watch a unique special, I think the Ticket for One thing is great, and it's free on YouTube as well. And I do think if you end up doing a special, YouTube is probably the best platform today to do your distribution, just because it's free. There's no zones, and anybody in the world could watch it. So if I'm not in your neck of the woods, I think more importantly, I think it's a good lesson to be learned as well. Or I hope there's a kernel of inspiration in there for what you do in the future as well. And it's just called Ticket for One.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Dave, can you add the link below the interview?
Yeah, I'll put the link in the description so people can watch it and check it out on the YouTube video. Because I think that's really good advice. I think the YouTube thing is great because a lot of people are waiting for like the TV producers to give them their big break. But if you have a friend with a camera, even just their phone, you can go out and film some amazing stuff, edit it together, and put it out there on YouTube. There's really very little blockers there now.
Yeah, and that's never going to happen. A producer will never cut. Like I made that from my hands. Like I hired every single person. I looked for like I even casted people as well because we couldn't fill up seats. Like that was from beginning to end. Like that would have never happened without someone like me like pushing it to happen. So yeah, maybe this is your sign to just go out there and do it. And it's okay if it fails. You need to start somewhere as well. So just know if it doesn't, it's never going to be as good as you had imagined it to be. But now that I've done it once, I know what to expect doing it a second time and a third time. It's just going to get better and better over time.
Absolutely.
I heard a great bit of advice for stuff we're putting up on the internet, and it's like, if you're worried about posting something, it getting no views and being embarrassed about it, the great thing is nobody knows it got no views because it got no views. So
Exactly.
it's like, who cares? It's like, if it gets loads of views, brilliant, it's a success. If it gets low views, nobody knows it got low views, so just do it anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a great way of like, sometimes done is better than perfect, and just giving it a go, you can always get there.
100%. Because in 10 years, nobody's going to care. And in 10 years, you're either in the same place that you're at right now, or you're building and developing your career. So
Absolutely. I think there's some really good nuggets for people to check out during this episode. I really appreciate you again coming on. We know you've been out of meetings to jump off to, so we really do appreciate your time for coming on again. So thanks so much,
man. It was great.
hey, man, I appreciate you guys. Let me know if you guys need anything, or you guys could always shoot me a text, give me a call for anything or nothing at all. I appreciate you guys. So I can't wait to see the episode as well.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
See you again. Thanks,
All
man.
right.
Cheers.
Take care.